All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most foundational concepts in all of economics, scarcity. But forget the dry textbook definitions for a second. We're going to explore this idea through the lens of a place most of us dream about, a beautiful tourist paradise. Because it's in these idyllic spots that the fight for limited resources becomes incredibly clear. So, what is scarcity, really? At its absolute core, economics boils down to this one single problem. On one hand, you have us, humans. We have basically unlimited wants, right? We want a better vacation, a bigger house, a more amazing experience. But on the other hand, the resources to make all that happen, the land, the clean water, the skilled people, even time itself, are all limited. They're finite. And that fundamental conflict, that mismatch, is scarcity. It's the engine that powers every single economic decision ever made.
I mean, think about it for a second. Have you ever been on vacation? You see this absolutely stunning stretch of beach, and it's completely walled off. It's reserved for hotel guests who are paying top dollar. You might wonder, why can't everyone enjoy this? Well, the answer is scarcity. It's not just about greed, it's a direct result of an economic choice. There is only so much prime beachfront in the world, and a decision had to be made about how to allocate it. That choice is economics, live and in action.
To really see how this plays out, we're going to use a place like the tourist destination Tanjung Lesung as a real-world laboratory. These hotspots are perfect for observing scarcity because the pressures are just so intense. You have tourists, developers, locals, and nature all competing for the same limited assets. Everyone wants their piece of paradise, but paradise itself is the ultimate scarce resource.
This pressure really boils down to four critical shortages. These are the flashpoints, the areas where the battle between what we all want and what's actually available creates massive challenges. Let's unpack each one of these. Okay, first up, the most obvious one, right? The land. Specifically, that prime beachfront real estate. It's the most valuable resource in any coastal destination. And here's the thing, you can't make more of it. It is inherently finite. And because it's so desirable for hotels, for private villas, for public parks, for conservation, it immediately becomes this major point of conflict. And this slide really nails the central conflict. On one side, you've got developers looking at that scarce land and seeing a gold mine. They want to build exclusive resorts that cater to high-paying tourists, maximizing profit. But on the other side, you have local communities who want to maintain access to beaches their families have used for generations, and environmentalists fighting to conserve fragile ecosystems. The outcome of this battle fundamentally shapes the entire destination. Next, let's move from physical capital, the land, to human capital. Now, you might assume that in many of these tourist destinations there's a surplus of labor, but that's a huge oversimplification. While there might be plenty of people available for basic jobs, the specific skills needed to run a world-class tourism industry are incredibly scarce. So here's the crucial point for any manager to understand. It isn't just about hiring bodies. It's about finding talent. You need staff with English proficiency to communicate with international guests. You need chefs with advanced culinary training. You need a team that understands the nuances of five-star service. These skills are a truly limited resource, and it forces resorts into this fierce competition to attract and, just as importantly, retain that top talent. This third shortage is, in many ways, the most critical and the most heartbreaking. It's the natural capital itself. We're talking about the pristine coral reefs, the crystal clear water, the untouched wildlife habitats. These are the very assets that draw tourists in the first place, but they are not infinitely resilient. They are exhaustible. And this brings us to a classic economic concept that you absolutely have to know, the tragedy of the commons. The idea is brilliant in its simplicity. When a resource, like a beautiful coral reef, is shared by everyone, no single person has a strong incentive to protect it. Every tour operator acting in their own rational self-interest will want to bring one more boat of tourists to the reef. Why? Because they get all the profit while the tiny bit of damage is shared by everyone. And that's the danger. That one extra boat trip doesn't seem like a big deal, but multiply that by hundreds or thousands of trips, and that collective action can bleach the coral, pollute the water, and destroy the reef. So the short-term gains made by individuals end up destroying the long-term economic value of the destination for the entire community. It's a textbook example of a market failure. And finally, our fourth shortage. This is the invisible stuff, the hidden foundation that holds the entire paradise together. It's infrastructure. We're talking about the essential grids and networks that any modern community relies on. And here's the problem.
These systems were often built for a small local population, not a massive seasonal influx of tourists.
Think about the practical implications. Every new hotel puts a new strain on the electrical grid. Every guest uses fresh water and creates wastewater. And every single visitor needs a road to get from the airport to the beach. When development happens too fast, these systems get pushed to the breaking point. And what's the result? You get power outages, water shortages, and gridlock traffic that frustrate not just the tourists, but the local residents who have to deal with it all year long.
Okay, so we've identified these 4 major areas of scarcity. The big question, the one every manager and policymaker has to ask, is, so what do we do? How do we decide who gets what? This is where microeconomics gives us a toolkit, a set of frameworks for allocating these scarce resources.
Broadly speaking, there are 3 main approaches. First, you can let the market decide. That's pricing. The beachfront land goes to the developer who can pay the most. It's economically efficient, but it risks pricing out locals and ignoring environmental costs. Second, you have government regulation, things like zoning laws or limiting tour permits. This can protect resources, but it can also be slow, bureaucratic, and sometimes corrupt. And third, there's communal management, where local communities set their own rules. This is great for getting buy-in, but it can be really difficult to enforce.
You know, when you look at all those tools, you realize they're all trying to solve the exact same problem. And that brings us to the core challenge, the central dilemma for any popular destination on Earth. It's all about finding that balance between the obvious economic benefits of growth and the absolute necessity of long-term sustainability.
And this quote really brings it all home. Efficient allocation isn't just about maximizing this quarter's profit. That's short-term thinking. True long-term efficiency is about finding that delicate equilibrium. It's about designing a system where you can have a vibrant, growing tourist economy without cannibalizing the very natural and cultural resources that make people want to visit in the first place.
So, I'll leave you with this question. The next time you're on vacation, I want you to look around. Look past the incredible view for a moment and start thinking like an economist. Ask yourself, what is scarce here? Who is competing for it? And what trade-offs were made to create this exact experience that I'm having right now? Because when you start seeing those answers, you'll understand the entire economic story of that place. Thanks for tuning in.